In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful, and may the peace and blessing of Allah be upon His last and beloved Messenger Muhammad, and may the peace and blessing of Allah be upon you all. The title of this episode is The Arabs Need a Miracle, and this is it. Now this title comes from my thinking and what Allah the Almighty guided me to about the condition of the Arabs before Islam. So if we think about the Arabs in the days of ignorance, these days were called the days of ignorance, before Islam and before Allah the Almighty sent Prophet Muhammad peace upon him. The Arabs, they had the following characteristics. Firstly, they were so much behind in knowledge. Secondly, they were brutal and savage toward each other. Thirdly, nobody really cared about them as a nation, as people that can contribute and provide anything. And people took advantage of their resources and wealth and stole them basically. Now, these were the characteristics of the Arabs before Islam. Now, in that miserable state, they needed a miracle to transform them, to bring them out of that state. And that miracle was the Noble Quran, the last revelation of Allah God to people. Allah sent down this miracle, and it was delivered to us through Prophet Muhammad peace upon him. May Allah reward him for his efforts. And when the Arabs understood the Quran, they implemented it. They became the teacher of others. They became merciful toward each other, and people really cared about them and respected them, and they took hold of their resources and they used these resources to make the word of Allah God supreme on earth. So we see how the Quran, this miracle, transformed the Arabs into a wonderful nation. Now if we come to the condition of the Arabs nowadays, because they abandoned the Quran, we have another age of ignorance. We have another days of ignorance. Because we see the characteristics of the Arabs nowadays is that firstly, they are behind in knowledge. Secondly, they are brutal and savage towards each other, and nobody really cares about them. Nobody really respects them nowadays, and people take advantage and steal their resources. Now, and people, the Arabs now, they try to remedy the situation by going to foreign countries, to the strangers, to learn knowledge. They go and to Britain, to America, to Germany to learn knowledge, and they spend their life learning knowledge, and really they don't do any major contribution of knowledge. For example, if you take any book in mathematics, in engineering, any textbook or any kind of scientific journal, you rarely find the name of an Arab or a Muslim. But some exceptional cases are there, but as a majority, you don't find really any contribution of Arabs and Muslims on civilization and on knowledge nowadays. In the past that was the opposite, but nowadays that's the situation. So we come back as if the time rotates. So we come back to a state, to an age that we need a miracle. The Arabs, they need a miracle to transform them from this state to a state of the opposite, of them being the teacher of others. Now what is this miracle? The miracle is the Noble Quran, and Allah the Almighty shows us the miracle that will transform the Arabs to the teacher of others and calling people to the path of Allah the Almighty. And this miracle is found in the Quran in the first verse that was revealed to Prophet Muhammad. In the very first verse that was revealed to Prophet Muhammad, that Allah the Almighty shows us what's the miracle that will save us, that will transform us to another state. The first verse of Revelation, which states, "Read in the name of your Lord who created." Read in the name of your Lord who created. Now a lot of Muslims, they read this verse, but who understood it? Who understands this verse? Read in the name of your Lord who created. Who understands it? I did not come across a single person who understood this verse, and yet it's read so many times. Now, the way to understand it is to ponder upon it, to reflect upon it, not just merely reciting it. So Allah here states, read, meaning seek knowledge. But the verse does not end there. Allah tells us what is the source of knowledge acceptable in His sight. Read in the name of your Lord who created, meaning seek knowledge from the book in which every information starts in the name of your Lord who created. And the name of the Lord who created is Allah. The name of the Creator of the heavens and the earth is Allah. So the verse becomes like, read in the name of Allah, meaning seek knowledge from the book in which every information starts in the name of Allah. And the only book on the face of the earth in which every information starts in the name of Allah is the Noble Quran. So the Noble Quran is the only book on the face of the earth in which every information starts in the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. So we learn from this that Allah the Almighty wants us to take all of our knowledge from the Quran. Now this necessitates the following three aspects. Firstly, that the Quran should contain all the branches of knowledge. Since Allah wants us to learn all of our knowledge from the Quran, it should by necessity contain all the branches of knowledge. It contains physics, engineering, chemistry, economics, jurisprudence, cosmology, everything. Secondly, that the Quran should contain by necessity the best way to derive this knowledge from the Quran and the best way to implement it. Learn it and to implement it. Thirdly, that the Quran should contain the best terminology to describe all branches of knowledge, the best terms to use. And as is shown in my website, the Quran contains this. The Quran contains all the branches of knowledge. The Quran contains the best way to learn and implement, and the best terminology. And if you go to my website and think about what's presented there, you will see what I mean. Now, this is the miracle of the Quran. Now, the importance of this miracle, threefolds. Firstly, making the word of Allah God supreme. How? Because if the believer shows that the Quran contains all the branches of knowledge, then this is a clear sign which testifies that the Quran is from Allah God Almighty. Because no human, regardless of how clever he is, can encompass all the branches of knowledge. The only one who can encompass all the branches of knowledge is Allah God Almighty. So if a believer shows this, then it's a sign which proves that the Quran is from Allah God Almighty, and with clear proof. Now the second importance of this miracle is that it makes the believer the teacher of others and not the one on the receiving end, which gives the believers a dignity, honor, and a very high status. Thirdly, it attracts the non-Muslims, the non-believers to the Quran, because the strangers to the religion, they love knowledge. So when they see that they are learning engineering, economics, cosmology from the Quran, they will be attracted to the book, and that will be a way for them to be guided to the path of Allah God Almighty. So this is the miracle which I call the miracle of knowledge of the Quran. This is the miracle that will transform the Arabs into a nation that will be the teacher of others, striving to make the way of Allah God supreme, having dignity, honor, and a very high status. And if you go to my website and see, you will find there how the superiority of the Quran to the main theme of the people of this age, which is knowledge. So you see there how, for example, people failed to diagnose and cure mental disturbances. You will see how the Quran gives us the best and the correct diagnosis and cure for mental disturbances. You will see in the site also how to do a PhD from the Quran, how to implement knowledge from the Quran, how to learn engineering from the Quran, physics, how to diagnose and cure AIDS, how to cure poverty in the world, everything. So you see in how the miracle of the Quran in this day of age. So please, brothers and sisters, go to my website, learn this miracle, from a brother who loves you and cares about you, and use it to make the way of Allah God supreme, and Allah will transform the Muslims into a nation that will benefit people, that will be the teacher of others, they will be on a very high status, and will make Allah God Almighty supreme on this earth. So to see this miracle, please visit my website at www.quran-miracle.com, and you can email me at zaidquran@yahoo.com, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all.